Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dane Explains. IVF, also known as in-vitro fertilization, has been in the news. The state of Alabama gave embryos legal personhood status. This sort of thing was probably inevitable since the fall of Roe Vs Wade. But why are the two related at all? Why are there people who think IVF is immoral? Let me explain why. When I was a kid, IVF was a fairly new thing. I'll leave it to you to figure out when that was. I was a science nerd, and everything I saw and read about it cast it as a good thing. It enabled people who would otherwise not be able to have children to actually have children. The only negatives I really heard about it at the time is that it could potentially be used to play God and decide something like the sex of your child. Of course, I know now that was a bit of an overly optimistic view, because doing something seemingly as simple as sexing a sperm is actually much harder than people think. The best that could actually be done is for the doctors to just pick the healthiest swimmer. However, the devil was in the details. I wasn't aware back then, but the picture of IVF that was painted in the periodicals and TV programs made things seem simpler, easier, and more ethical than they actually were. You have to break some eggs to make an omelet, or a viable pregnancy in the case of IVF. It's a question of, do the ends justify the means? An easy to understand analogy is a bloody revolution. Lots of innocent people die in the process, but at the end of the day, the revolutionaries see their deaths as acceptable in order to achieve their ends. Well, morally speaking, it's always wrong to do something you know will kill innocent people, even if you think the ends justify the means. Two wrongs don't make a right. It's funny how a lot of people glob onto the idea of fetal stem cell research as being a bad thing, because not only are you killing someone, but you're doing it to play God, yet they miss the reasons why IVF is wrong, because of the apparently good outcome. Well, what is the outcome anyway? And who's it good for? I think if any truly pro-life person knew the actual details of IVF, they'd be against it. You see, IVF doesn't actually work very well. They don't actually just fertilize one egg and implant it into the mother, or surrogate. The issue with doing that is the embryo has difficulty taking. So if they implanted them one at a time like that, it would probably take quite a few cycles for the woman to actually get pregnant. So what they normally do is fertilize many eggs and place them in the uterus in batches, in hopes that one will make it. This can go on more than once if it doesn't take. Then once one finally does, the rest of the fertilized embryos are usually thrown away. That is, unless the parents want to keep them to try and get pregnant again. And if for some reason too many take, the doctors will usually encourage the parents to eliminate some of the fetuses via abortion. This is like Hunger Games, but for babies. Any person who believes life begins at conception should be appalled by the process. And if you don't, I have a whole series of videos on abortion you should watch. There is more to this than just some philosophical idea as well. Someone might say that in vitro would be fine if you only fertilized and implanted one egg at a time. Sure, it would take longer to get pregnant, but you're minimizing the number that would die. Well, there's still the slippery slope of what's an okay amount of people who have to die for you to get pregnant. To an embryo, the uterus is a huge place, and the uterus is the ideal place for conception to happen. It's designed to carry the fertilized egg from the fallopian tube to the correct place to implant. Kind of like teaching a kid to swim at the safety of the shore, versus IVF, which is more like dropping them into the ocean and hoping they just kind of make it to the shore and implant, rather than being washed out to sea. That's hardly a mortal way of doing things if you ask me. You'll notice that I put a cross in the title and the thumbnail along with the atom, which means this video covers scientific and theological aspects, beyond violating the obvious commandment of thou shalt not kill. Even if there were some way to avoid killing embryos, there is still the issue of the nature of artificial conception. IVF is the flip side of the coin of the immorality of contraception. One of the reasons why contraception is immoral is because it separates conception from the most powerful ability God gave us, which is the procreative act, and is done for the purpose of our own personal pleasure, so we don't have the risk of having to deal with the God-given consequences of the act itself. IVF also separates conception from the procreative act by making conception happen outside of it, just because we want something we feel we deserve that God hasn't given us. The power that God gave us to create another living soul should not be taken so lightly. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon to get extra content and special perks. Link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.